Hey everyone, and welcome. Let's be real. If you've ever felt a bit overwhelmed by that first chapter of the psychology optional syllabus, you are definitely in the right place. Today, we're going to break down the introduction chapter and turn those foundational concepts into a real strategic advantage for your mains exam. So, let's dive right in. And just to show you how absolutely crucial this chapter is, take a look at this. This is a 20 marker pulled straight from the 2024 Civil Services exam. This isn't just theory, This is the kind of thing you're actually going to face. What we're about to cover will give you the exact framework to tackle questions just like this one head on. So here's our game plan. We'll start with the core definition, what psychology really is. Then we'll trace the evolution of thought, which directly answers that 2024 question. After that, we'll tackle the classic debate. Is it a science or a social science? Then we'll see how it all applies to society. And finally, we'll pull everything together into your key takeaway for scoring those high marks. Okay, first things first, before you can even begin to talk about diversity of thought or applications, you need a rock-solid, precise definition. And this isn't just some formality right at the beginning. This is the very foundation that your entire answer is built upon. Get this right, and everything else falls into place. Here it is. This is the formal definition you need to internalize, to have in your back pocket. Psychology is a science, and it systematically studies three key things: our mental processes, our subjective experiences, and our observable behavior. And that last part is so important. It studies them in different contexts. That's where all the nuance and richness of the subject really comes from. So let's break those three pillars down. What do they actually mean? Well, mental processes are all the things happening inside your head, your thinking, your memory, how you solve problems. Experiences, on the other hand, are totally subjective. They're your personal, conscious feelings and your awareness of them. And finally, behavior. That's everything we can actually see and observe, from a simple twitch to a complex decision. A great answer unpacks all three of these. All right, now let's get into how this whole field evolved. This next part, as I mentioned, is a direct line to answering that 2024 question about the diversity of thought. You see, psychology didn't just pop into existence fully formed. Nope. It was shaped by some really intense and, frankly, fascinating debates between different schools of thought. Our story really kicks off in 1879 in Leipzig, Germany, with the very first psychology lab. This was the birth of structuralism. But it wasn't long before it was challenged by functionalism, which in turn was challenged by the super radical ideas of behaviorism in the early 20th century. This whole progression of ideas, this clash, is the diversity of thought they're asking about. And this slide captures that very first big debate. On one side, you had the structuralists. They wanted to create a map of the mind, asking, what is it made of? What are its basic parts? And their main tool was introspection. Basically, a very careful self-examination of your own conscious thoughts. But on the other side, the functionalists, who were really inspired by Darwin, came along and asked a totally different question. Who cares what it's made of? What is the mind for? They were all about how our minds help us survive and adapt. And then the revolution happened. Around 1910, a guy named John Watson looked at this whole debate about the invisible mind and basically said, enough of this. He argued that if psychology was going to be a real science like physics or chemistry, it had to study things you could actually see, measure, and verify. So he just redefined the entire field as the science of observable behavior, a world of stimulus and response. It was a massive game-changing shift. And you can see how that very debate about what psychology should even be studying leads us straight into another classic UPSC topic. Is psychology, at its core, a natural science like biology, or is it a social science, more like sociology? And this isn't a new question at all. This was a 25 marker way back in the 2013 exam. It really gets to the very soul of the discipline, doesn't it? Is the goal to find universal laws that cause behavior, or is it to understand behavior in its rich, messy, sociocultural context? The real answer is, it's both. This table breaks down those two parallel streams perfectly. When it acts as a natural science, psychology uses things like controlled lab experiments to find those universal cause and effect laws that can predict behavior. Think neuroscience. But when it acts as a social science, it uses methods like case studies and interviews to understand how our unique context shapes who we are, knowing the behavior often has multiple complex causes. A truly fantastic answer embraces this duality.
Okay, so we've defined psychology and we've debated its very nature, but so what? Why does any of this matter? Well, this next part is all about application, about moving from these abstract theories to solving actual, real-world problems in our society. And you know what? The UPSC itself gave us the perfect introduction to this idea in the 2023 paper with this 10 marker. This quote forces us to think about the practical value of what we're studying. It's not just an academic game. Psychology is meant to be a tool for real change.
So where does psychology actually make a difference? Well, as another 2023 question pointed out, a huge area right now is addressing mental health. But it's also absolutely crucial in improving our schools, in making our workplaces more efficient and humane, in providing therapy and counseling, and even in helping athletes perform at their absolute peak. These are the concrete examples you need to bring your answers to life. Whew, we've covered a lot of ground, so now let's pull it all together. Let's synthesize everything into the single most important takeaway that's going to help you structure a really high-scoring answer.
Here it is. This is the key to a top-tier answer. Don't just treat these topics like separate little boxes to check off. A great answer tells a story. It shows the examiner how that initial definition of psychology sparked those early historical debates, how those debates shaped its dual nature as both a natural and social science, and how all of that theoretical groundwork now lets us tackle today's complex problems. You have to connect the dots. It's all one cohesive story.
So I'll leave you with a thought to carry forward with you. Now that you've seen the scope and the power of psychology, from its core definition all the way to its real-world applications, just think about our world today. Which pressing issue, whether it's misinformation, climate anxiety, social division, which one do you believe most urgently needs a psychological lens to help us solve it? That kind of critical thinking is what turns a good student into a great one. Keep that question in mind.